This is Adversity on the Big Stage by Jackson C. So my research question is, how do celebrities navigate and overcome adversity to maintain the public image and personal well-being? To do that, we have to understand what fear is. So according to Tom Beckers, a PhD professor in psychology, fear is an adaptive emotion that mobilizes defensive resources upon confrontation with danger. However, fear becomes maladaptive and can give rise to the development of clinical anxiety when it exceeds the degree of threat. This shows that fear can be a crippling force and can stop people from doing many things in their lives. It can also be turned against people, but it shouldn't be turned against ourselves. This also shows that in the stimulus source, the inaugural address, the only thing to fear is fear itself, as FDR said. Which means that if we're always living in fear, we can't do anything or create anything. President FDR made a great country during the Great Depression. He lifted it up because he didn't fear fear. He went through and raised up the country. This also shows this quote from Jalen Hurts. 10% of life is what happens to you, while 90% is how you respond. The 90% is the fear and adversity that's in you, and the 10% is how you adapt to overcome that, which is the most important part of life. If you don't change yourself according to the fear and adversity you struggle with, then there is no change. Some examples of this is through celebrities. In Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, in his late teens, he had self-image issues and he suffered from depression and anxiety. But he focused on the 10% of life, which is what he could control. He powered through and he began to focus on himself and work out, which increased his self-confidence and led him to become who he is today. Another example is Mariah Carey. She suffered from bipolar disorder and other past trauma from her family, but she realized that she should do what she loved what she was doing, which is making music and dancing. She used the 10% to become who she is today, which is a famous songwriter. Another one is Robert Downey Jr. He had a drug addiction and even allowed his 6-year-old son to use drugs. However, which led him to being arrested for 3 years. But he used that 90% of life as his past, and used the 10% to push forward and become an actor, which he is today, in Iron Man. He also had other legal issues, but he pushed through that adversity. Those 3 celebrities had something in common. They didn't let their issues stop them from becoming who they were. Their confidence and their struggles led to their success, which is simply their names. The other stimulus connection is Simone Biles. Instead of letting fear keep her quiet, she quit instead of letting others take advantage of her. She spoke out to the world. Without letting the 10% change her, she couldn't have done it. So the main solution is to focus on what you can control and use that 10% to push yourself forward and ask others for help. It's harder to do things alone when you have a group. It's easier to do it. Adversity shouldn't stop anyone from overcoming obstacles and reaching their dreams. You can always make something out of nothing. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Jackson. Jackson, how did you approach and synthesize the different perspectives in order to reach a conclusion?
So I used different perspectives. Like some people suggested that other ways and truly like finding out what you'd like to do to find a conclusion. But I found out that's the best one, is the mental health organization.
Okay. And then what other questions emerged as you were researching, and why were those questions important?
I found out what else pushed them, what other people made them where they are today, because they didn't do that themselves.